Did you know that wealthy people have money because they spend less than they earn? Now, broke people, on the other hand, do the opposite. They spend more money than they have, or they just spend money that they don't have at all. So in this video, we want to talk about 5 habits of millionaires so that you can incorporate these habits into your lifestyle, because it's actually quite simple. My name is Carmen.
And I'm Darius. And a few habits that I started noticing was when we went to lunch. Every time we went to lunch with a millionaire, we started to notice exactly what they were ordering. A lot of times they ordered water, and then other times whenever they get an appetizer, they don't always order a dessert also. So we started to notice a few things like that.
Yeah, because on the contrary, we order everything and a few drinks, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that I noticed is that every millionaire that I knew had something that they kind of spent money on, and other things they could care less about. So for example, if they enjoyed watches, then they could care less about their cars or the kind of clothes that they wear.
Yeah.
And another guy that I knew, if he enjoyed his cars, then he looked basically like a bum. Now, just to add to that, there's another gentleman that I knew that had a really nice house, but he drove a Toyota Camry. Mm-hmm. And it was an old Toyota Camry at that. Mm-hmm. So every single millionaire had a thing that they really enjoyed, but one thing they had in common was they all had good financial habits.
Yes.
And some of those habits we should start taking on ourselves so that we can start having money like they do.
All right, so the very first point that we want to address with you is do not spend money to impress your neighbors, to impress other people, because that's where we get into trouble. That's where we just start overspending and spending money that we don't have because we're trying to look good for someone else. At the end of the day, we spend so much time trying to look like money, but we ain't got any money to begin with. So definitely take this into consideration the next time you try to make a purchase. When you buy shoes, when you buy your house, when you buy your car, whatever the case may be, why are you buying this? Are you buying it because you need it, or are you buying something more expensive because you're trying to look good for someone else?
And at the end of the day, you pay your bills, not them.
Yep.
But until they start contributing to the cause, then who cares what in the world people think?
Exactly. Now, if you answered yes to this, or you know that this is you, then do me a favor and click on the link below and join our currency crash course. And the reason being is because we are here to help you bridge the gap between where you are financially to where you want to be, so that you can live the lifestyle that you deserve and stop living for somebody else.
The second thing that I noticed is never make a large purchase that you have to buy immediately. Always sleep on it. Because if we're pushed into making a purchase immediately, we're going to make an emotional decision.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to make emotional decisions. We want to make logical decisions. And if we're able to go home and think about it, then we can start tapping into that more logical way of looking at things. Mm-hmm.
And I know that I've done this before, is sometimes I might feel obligated or pressured to make a decision. Man, you are nodding your head a little too hard over there. So basically what I was trying to say is I felt pressured to make a decision, and I realized that I just needed to take a moment and clear my head and think for myself instead of feeling pressured about something. So the whole point of taking a moment, taking a break, and walking away is just to give you the clarity that you need to really make an educated decision, because if not, it's going to be an emotional decision and you may end up regretting it later. Now, this leads us to the third point, which is never buy something that you cannot afford. More specifically, stop using credit for your purchases. Now, why in the world are you buying things that you cannot afford? If you're dependent on credit cards or loans or whatever the case may be, your mama, your daddy, to pay for these things, you are not doing well financially. And you need to take a moment, look in the mirror, speak to yourself and come to terms with where you are. And the other point that I want to make with this is if you cannot afford to buy something twice, then you cannot afford it. I mean, if you're shopping for a car, if you cannot afford to buy that car 2 times, then you cannot afford it. The shoes, the stuff for our houses, anything, our house in general, if you can't buy that sucker twice, then you cannot afford it. So this is a really nice measure that we like to use to understand whether or not we can afford this purchase or not.
Now, we're not saying that anything is wrong with credit, because there's a difference between needing credit and wanting to use credit as a way of leverage. There's 2 different ways to go about doing this.
Yes.
If you need it, then there's a problem.
Yes.
The problem is you can't afford it.
Yes.
If you want to use it to leverage yourself, and put yourself in a position where you can use this to invest or use this to make money in other places, then by all means.
Put yourself in a better position.
Exactly.
Then yes. This is the credit that we're not talking about. We're talking about dependency on credit.
Right. At the end of the day, our habits are what make us who we are. If me and you had the same amount of income, but one of us had better financial habits than the other, the person with the best financial habits will always end up with the most money.
Say that one more time. I think people really need to get that.
If both of us had the same amount of income and one of us had better financial habits than the other, the person with the better financial habits will always end up with the most money. And we talk about this more in our course in the section Where Are You Now? Because it is very important that you maintain the habits of successful people so that you can be successful. Your habits are what makes you who you are. Exactly. And the better financial habits that you have, the better your finances will be in the future.
So definitely click on the link below so that you can start creating a lifestyle that you deserve.
Right. Change your health, change your wealth. Now, the next thing that we want to talk about is the fact that rich people have budgets. All the millionaires that I talked to had budgets and they knew their numbers to a T. They were well calculated when it came to their personal expenses and their business expenses, because every financial decision that you make, no matter how big or how small, affects your bottom line. And whenever it came to making these decisions, they were very, very well calculated.
Exactly. I mean, to the point where they're just rattling off numbers as if you would think that they're reading a spreadsheet, but they're not. We're just in normal conversation. So are you able to do the same thing with your numbers? Can you just rattle off how much your expenses are, or do you actually have to look it up? If you have to look it up, then maybe you're not as in touch with your finances as you think you are. And that's why we always talk about creating a plan or a budget, whatever you want to call it. We're not trying to restrict you from your spending. We're trying to get you to be more aware of your spending. That's the difference in the plan that we want you to create for yourself.
Right, and don't get us wrong, money isn't everything, but it is most things, because most things require us to spend money in order to attain them. Some of the things that we want to accomplish as far as our lifestyle, it requires money for us to exchange that for our time back.
Absolutely.
So money is a very important thing, but it's not everything.
And if everything is affected by money, you need to be able to understand how to manage it. That's the one thing that I feel in life that we're so ill-equipped on, is we don't understand how to manage our money, but yet our money affects everything that we do. So since we spent all this time talking about being aware of your finances, the fifth thing that we want to share with you is always get the best price. Just because you spend $200 on a pair of shoes doesn't make them more comfortable. It means you spent $200. So if anything, do your research, understand the value of the things that you're buying, and make sure that you're always getting the best price. And it's so easy to do so these days with Google, with Amazon, and all the resources that we have at our fingertips. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do your research.
Right, and I can take this back to a time where I remember going shopping at Costco for shirts because they were on sale. It wasn't for me, it was with one of the friends that we were with. They were multimillionaires and they had to go to Costco to purchase these bamboo material shirts. And the reason that it kind of took me back was, here I am thinking I'm getting a good deal by going to the Polo outlet, but then this guy is going to Costco to get shirts and getting super excited the fact that they're on sale at Costco. So it made me definitely start to reevaluate some of the things that I spend my money on and really start thinking about making sure I get the best price.
And also it makes you think about the value that we place on things, because I know Darius, my fashionista, he really appreciates clothes. And so having that shopping experience at Costco definitely changed his perspective on the value that we place on certain things. And you never know this until you start having experiences with people who actually have money. Now, the moral of the story is make sure that you understand that you're in control, because if you're going to be dependent on other things or let your habits control you, then your financial health is going to continue to suffer. Now, what we want you to do is check out our next video where we actually talk about how you can create a financial plan for yourself. Again, because we're trying to bridge the gap from where you want to be to where you want to go.
And remember to own your own lifestyle.
Or someone else will.